Well, what's up again, guys? Brian here at 3TR. Welcome to another episode of the People's Questions, where I answer all the questions that have been sent to me over the past week. We got a pretty simple episode, nothing out of the ordinary. I think we had maybe one newbie. But before I get into your questions, I would just like to let everybody know that if there was a question that you sent in for the last episode and you don't hear it in this video, be sure to check the comment section of the last video because chances are it is answered there. And there was certainly a number of questions that I answered personally or someone else already kind of knew the answer, and so they answered it for me. So for those of you that did that, thank you. So starting off with the first question, coming from Marcus Rienien. You want to know, what is the most bizarre thing that I've seen or heard in gaming? The announcement that Xbox Live was coming to Nintendo. Yeah, I hope that PlayStation stays away from this stuff. Like, that scares me. Because that is like a sign of the beginning of the end of the console war, and we need the console war more than ever. I'm telling you guys, and I'm calling it right now. If this kind of stuff is allowed to continue, I'm telling you, within 3 to 4 years, or at least sometime in the next generation of gaming consoles, you're going to start seeing Nintendo games being put on the Xbox. I would not even be surprised if a day came where Microsoft and Nintendo decided to join forces because they both realized that neither one of them by themselves stands a chance against Sony. But heck, that's just how I personally feel. Next question comes from Harshly Critical. You want to know, who is my favorite singer/rapper? Well, I don't really listen to rap, but my favorite artist is, without question, Michael Jackson. I don't really give a damn about the stupid documentary that came out. I don't give a shit about all these allegations that have been said towards him. The guy is innocent. He didn't touch those fucking kids. That's all I need to say. I've been listening to his music since I was a kid, and I will continue to listen to his music to the day I die, happily. Hell, my favorite song of all time is a Michael Jackson song, so yeah. Next question comes from All-Star Gamerbook. You want to know, do I think leaks have become do I think that they have become game developers' #1 enemy to this day and age? No, not really. Because here's the thing about leaks. These leaks can only happen if they allow information to get out. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like, well, we want people to know about our game, but we don't want to give them too much information. And so just make sure that the amount of information you give out is a lot. It doesn't necessarily need to be important, but a lot. That way, there would be no need for leaks. Otherwise, you're going to be in a situation where you don't want to have information get out. Once it's out, then it's like, okay, then we have to balance out with an announcement of our own. If you're controlling all the, like, ever wonder why Hideo Kojima is so good at his job? Why, like, almost no one knows anything about his games? Because he controls the leaks. I mean, I will never forget, like, his mastery of how he hid Raiden. Because if you actually do the research on the promotion from Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty, up until its release, there was no indication that Raiden was going to be the main protagonist. If you actually look at all the trailers and all the footage they had showed us of the plant mission, it put Snake in that position. And it wasn't until the game came out that we knew Raiden was there. And, that is still masterful. That would be almost impossible to pull that off now. But heck, look at his game. It's managing to pull it off. I mean, it's been it's been talked about for like the last 2-3 years, and we still don't know all that much about it. But heck, when it comes out, I'm sure it will meet all of expectations. Next question comes from Will Williams. You want to know, if Anakin was trained by a more experienced Jedi, example Mace Windu, Yoda, or Qui-Gon Jinn, if he had survived, do I think he would have turned to the dark side? Mace Windu never would have took him. Yoda would have been too busy. Qui-Gon would have been the perfect person for him. I don't think he would have turned to the dark side. Qui-Gon was a lot more lenient. He wasn't as much of a strict Jedi as, say, someone like Obi-Wan Kenobi, who kind of liked to follow all the rules. And Qui-Gon would have known about Anakin's mother, so I think he would have been a little bit more flexible. I think he would have, initially saved, or at least gotten Smee off of Tatooine. So no, I do not think so. And when you really think about the Anakin-Obi-Wan Kenobi relationship, I don't think Obi-Wan Kenobi was really the right person for Anakin, because their relationship was kind of more of a, like, dad just died and so big brother has to try to raise little brother, and yet even big brother didn't really follow dad's rules all that much. He still tried to be traditional. So yeah, I think if Qui-Gon Jinn had been able to train Anakin, I don't think he would have turned to the dark side. because a lot of things wouldn't have happened. I mean, Dooku never would have Dooku never would have turned, because you have to remember that like Qui-Gon dying was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. So I don't think Dooku would have turned. He probably would have left the Order, but I don't think he would have joined Sidious. Just so many things would have changed had Qui-Gon lived. Next one comes from Silver Lionheart 2099, and you want to know, what do I think would happen if Titus and Cloud changed places, where Titus was in FF7 and Cloud was protagonist of 10? Okay, well, there's a number of problems there. Here's the problem with this. If you just took these two characters and switched them out, Titus has absolutely no idea who these characters are. And so he would feel out of place. He would not know anything about Zack. He would not know anything about Soldier. He would not know about his allies, and so it's unlikely he would join Avalanche. Yeah, I mean, the thing that makes... I mean, the only reason that Cloud even joined Avalanche was because he knew Tifa, and she knew Barrett. So you remove that connection out, and he would just be some guy just wandering around not knowing what to do. And then vice versa, if Cloud went to Spira, he has no connection. I mean, the only reason that Titus was brought to Spira in the first place was because of his connection to Jack. And Jack was Sin. Otherwise, you just have some guy wandering around with nothing to do. I mean, that's kind of the problem. It doesn't make sense if you just switch them. There was reasons for them to be there. And so, yeah, even if you gave Titus Genova cells, he wouldn't have a purpose to use them. Because he has no connection. He has nothing to do. I mean, you can't just say, oh, he'll just do the same thing that Cloud did. He wouldn't do that because he has no reason to. And so that's why these characters work perfectly in the games they are presented, because they actually have a personal reason for doing what they are doing. If you just switch them, then you just have two random guys that are just in a world with nothing to do. They would just find a place to live and just be quietly. So, yeah. And the next question comes from the Only Newbie, and you can have two names, so I'm going to try my best. You go by like DPman39 / Dpora1979, interesting name. You want to know, there is a code of Virgil being able to be playable in Devil May Cry 5. Do I think that this will be DLC, and am I excited? If it is DLC, what would I want Virgil's campaign to be? I was not aware of the code, but I will say this. I've heard that Capcom had no plans on making DLC. But they would be stupid not to allow us to play something for Virgil. That'd just be stupid. That would be stupid. I mean, they found that out with Devil May Cry 3, because I'm not even sure if there was ever plans to play as Virgil. But when the special edition came out, like, they made Virgil a playable character. And then even when you think about the special edition for Devil May Cry 4, they made sure Virgil was a playable character. So I have no doubt that Virgil will be a playable character. But if I could pick a campaign for him, I would have it. I mean, here's how it would start off. Like when he first comes back in Devil May Cry 5, spoiler alert, when he's sitting in that chair at the top of the plant, you could have him reminisce about his memories. And I basically would have the story revolve around what Virgil was doing after Mundus was killed, because we're not even sure exactly what Virgil was doing between Devil May Cry 1 and Devil May Cry 5, because he didn't have the Amado with him, and so he was just kind of wandering around. And so it'd be interesting to know what he was doing. Like, why was he in such bad condition? Was it because he got his ass kicked by Dante Devil May Cry 1 when he was under Mundus' control? How exactly did he locate Nero? What has he been doing? That's what I would have his DLC content be focused on. Because that's the only kind of like gap in his history that like is just kind of there. And the last question of the episode comes from Phantom Sidious. You want to know, what do I think are some of the greatest video game sequels of all time? Dead Space 2, Infamous 2, Resident Evil 4, Mortal Kombat 2, Metal Gear Solid 3. I mean, those are just a few. Those are just Killzone 2. Doom 2. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Call of Duty World at War. I mean, there's a whole bunch sequels that I think are just some of the all-time best. But those are just ones that I can just think of off the top of my head. And with that, those are the questions that have been sent to me. I'd like to thank the number of you that happen to send your questions in, whether I answered them here in the video or in the comment section of the last video. If you guys have any more questions you'd like me to answer, hopefully in next week's episode, be sure to type them in the comments down below. But make sure to get them into me before next Wednesday, roughly around noon, before I start filming the next episode. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you next time.